All right, so welcome everybody to the last session, the last live session of the annual meeting for 2020. Um, I'm not going to be on camera at all, and I'm going to shut up very shortly after this, but I want to do a couple quick house cleaning things. This will be the last live session. Everything else is going to happen, quote unquote, virtually, even though this is virtual, on Discord, on Facebook, or on the forums. We'll wrap up the Mantis competition, announce the winners, that kind of thing, sometime later today. I think we're going to give folks a little longer than originally we had slotted for the contest, just to make sure everybody gets a chance to shoot it. But today, for this last session, we're going to hand it over to Lara and Kat and Danielle and Patti for an Ask the Ladies panel. A number of questions that got plopped into the Discord channel and a couple other places, and I think we got a lot of material to go over with, and now it's time for the men to shut up. Lara, it's all yours.
Okay. I'm Lara Smith, and I'm the national spokesperson for the Liberal Gun Club, and we've been wanting to do a women's panel for a while, so this is our chance, because we're all remote, to actually do one. I have Patti, Kat, and Danielle with me, all of whom have very different experiences in the gun world and very different things that they do in the gun world. And so we are a nice, big, broad group of people to talk to about what women's experiences in the gun world are like, because we all do very different things in the gun world and our experiences are different. Thank you guys for asking so many questions. Because there were so many questions, we actually took some of them and kind of combined them into one that got to the point of what we thought you guys were getting at. So Danielle is going to kind of read the questions, and we're going to kind of round table it. And then if you guys have more questions, you can always bug me. Yes, Eddie's sitting to my right. He's over there. And yes, he's waving off to the side.
Do you freeze?
So we, my very supportive husband, who deals with me doing all this crazy stuff, and got to go to SHOT, so he knows Kat and everybody. But we will answer the questions as they come up. If you have more questions, we will definitely answer the question from Robert's daughter. And if you have more questions, you can post them both in the Discord or on the Zoom here. So Danielle, do you want to give us our first question?
Sure. It's kind of a series of questions. A lot of people wanted to know at what age we started, like what age we first shot a firearm, what it was, what the caliber was, when we became interested in firearms, for those of us that shooting for the first time wasn't when we really became interested. Yeah, any introductory information. Kat, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I'll start. I'll try to make it short because I can ramble. So my first shot was in December of 2015. So I was 45 years old, and it was a class. So it was under instruction, at least, and it was with 22s. Little Rugers they had everybody in the class using. It was a class that in Illinois, you're required to have a firearms owner's ID in order to possess or own firearms. So in that class, because you're under instructors, you didn't have to have a FOID in order to do the class. So that was one motivation. And but I enjoyed it so much that during the class, I applied for my FOID. So by January of 2016, me and the friend that I went to the class with were shooting regularly. She and I just really enjoyed it so much. She had only been shooting for a few months. Her boyfriend had gotten her into it, and she knew that she was not learning correctly. So she and I kind of pursued instruction together and shot together for a while, every other week for over a year. And during that time, I bought my first firearm. What was the rest of that question? I know there was first firearm questions, but I don't remember if that was part of this or if that's later.
What was your first gun and why?
Yeah, so I went between that December and April. I went straight from knowing nothing to getting my concealed carry. And so my first gun was my carry gun, which is a Springfield XD9 Mod 2. I love it. I still love it. I carry it every day. I actually competed with it at first when I first started trying to get into competition. It was still my only gun. So I bought the holster and all the stuff I needed for it to just start out in a little bit of competition. Nothing official, but like just little local, single shot matches, and really enjoyed it. So that kind of got me into all the rest of this. And then in trying to find individual instruction, female instruction, I turned to YouTube. I actually found places on YouTube, and that's also in that searching is how I found the Liberal Gun Club. So that's kind of mostly it in a nutshell. I've gone on to compete and become an instructor with the LGC and all that good stuff.
And okay, how about Patti next? Because I know she's been shooting for a lot longer.
Oh, just a little bit. As near as I can remember, the first time I shot a gun, I was, I think, 8 years old. My dad said, "You want to shoot this 410?" I said, "Sure." And I shot it, and a very nice old man that was my grandfather's tenant farmer. I remember holding the shell and going, "How do I put it in?" And he said, "Well, you'll find if you put it in this way, it'll work real good." And I've always appreciated that kindly, kind of bit of help as an introduction. So I shot it, and it knocked me back a step or two. And I looked at my daddy and said, "Can I shoot it again?" And I was hooked. From there, I would get to shoot my dad's guns. And I was thinking about this the other day when I was thinking about this. Really, over the years, we only went shooting like 4 or 5 times. And I treasured every time. And then we moved to the country, and all of a sudden, Dad didn't lock the gun cabinet anymore. And I think that was his way of saying, "Okay, you're old enough. And since your mother has no idea how to work a gun, your sister has no idea, you take care of everybody if I'm not here." So that was kind of my introduction. My first gun that I purchased, gosh, I don't even remember where or how I got it or anything. As near as I can remember, it was a little Colt 25 auto, which I shot maybe 4 or 5 times and then sold in a yard sale. After that, and boy, now I'm gonna really expose myself on this one. I went to the Mount Sterling Court Days, which is a place that used to sell guns. It's just an open festival. And I bought a Ruger Mark, whatever it was back then. It might have been 1, it might have been 2 back then. I thought I'd bought a German Luger. I was that green with it. And I said, "Is this a Luger?" And the guy says, "Well, it's a Ruger." And I thought, good enough. And so it went downhill after that for a while. And I bought a bunch of different things. And then I met a guy who was into competitive shooting. And then I started getting good guns. Rest is
Awesome. How about you, Lara?
So I was an anti-gunner. I think most people know this story. I was a strongly held opinion anti-gunner and had been pretty much forever. And of course, Eddie, my husband, was in the Marines, had grown up with guns. We had a couple of guns that were his grandfather's, but didn't use them, didn't have guns in the house. And he really wanted to get back into shooting. And he also kept telling me that, you don't know, the arguments you're making don't make sense. You're a lawyer. You really should go learn this. Go take a couple of lessons. Go try this out. And I said, "Okay, fine, but you're not teaching me. and I want my own gun. The whole like range gun thing to me, I don't know. And actually, I still kind of feel this way. I don't like shooting range guns. And that has not, in the years that I've been doing this, that hasn't changed. So 2014, I think, is when the first time I shot a gun. So I was 43. And I take that back. I had grown up around farms. So we had shotguns with snake shot for, vermin, but had not had handguns, had not been around that. So first time I shot a handgun, I was 43, and I went to the gun store, and a great guy actually really helped me and talked to me about grip and what was easier to learn to shoot and all of these things. And I ended up buying a Mark III, which is still my favorite gun. And I got lessons with a wonderful female trainer who's now up in Reno. And she taught me to shoot. And the first time I went, I was like, oh, this is fun. And oh, I'm good at this. This is great. And that was that was it. I was hooked. And so I went and but my very first my very first exposure to the gun world online was not friendly. It was a really crazy group. So I ended up finding LGC and also A Girl and a Gun. And so got a lot of training through that. And so kind of always in the gun world, I've had a lot of women around and been involved with women's gun sports, that kind of thing. So so that's how I got into it. And so mostly I shoot some competition. And now I try to shoot as much shotgun as I can. That's kind of my favorite now.
Awesome. So I'm the newest of the four of us. I first shot a gun in, I was 4 years old. I had to confirm this with my dad this weekend. And he said it was the Ruger 1022, and he held it for me. And I just pulled the trigger. And when we were done, I had no interest. I basically asked to go play with my toys. And then we tried again when I was 8, and I got to hold it then. And same thing, after pulling the trigger, I was really not interested at all. And so I grew up and there were always guns in the house, and both of my parents were gun enthusiasts. So I always knew the basics, knew where they were, had no interest in them whatsoever. But was kind of gun agnostic about it all. Like, sure, other people can have them, but I don't want them. And then last year, at age 39, I decided I was interested and found the LGC to help me find a trainer who could help me figure out what my first gun was going to be. And I got a Glock 34. I like it. It's a big one. And I like how steady it is and how easy it is to use. So. Our next question revolves around purchasing guns. And I know we all have a lot to say about this. What's worse, the gun store employee who pays no attention to you because you're a woman, or the gun store employee that pays entirely too much attention to you because you're a woman? Who wants to start us off?
I'll start that one. I think they're both bad. I think they're both bad in different ways. The gun store clerk that pays too much attention to you is the world's creepiest thing. And in the gun store, that guy, I often know more about the guns than he does. That's a pretty constant. And B, it makes you feel so high profile, and it's a really uncomfortable situation to be singled out like that. The guys who ignore you is just frustrating. My favorite story about that is I was at a Turner's and I was buying ammo for one of the meet in the middle. So I needed to buy about $650 worth of ammo at one time. And the guy behind the counter helped 3 men. It should have been the one guy ahead of me, and then the other 2. He helped all 3 guys first and then walked away while I was still standing there. And it was the only store on the way that I could buy the ammo that I needed, because I needed some calibers that like Walmart wasn't going to have. So I had to get the store manager and like tell him what I was doing and what had happened. And it was so frustrating. So that is a constant problem. Store clerks that if you go in with a male companion, talk to them. It's so frustrating. But they're both frustrating, but for different reasons.
How about you, Kat?
Yeah, so far I've not run into anything so egregious. And I find that it is usually just like unwanted attention. So a lot of times I'll just make my interest at a different, like usually most of the stores I've been to have been big enough that I can kind of find another counter where a different sales clerk is hanging around. And if that guy's better, then I'll kind of take him and then move around back to where I was interested. My first gun purchase was my XD9, and that was when I was my other gun mostly online. I've actually bought mostly from like Gun Broker and stuff, but I didn't know any better at first, and I got a decent price when I bought that first one. So experience overall at that particular gun shop wasn't bad. I've had other times where I've gone to gun shops just to look around or maybe handle stuff that I was looking at online if it wasn't available to like rent. So when I was shopping for my 22, which is a Buckmark Contour, and it's got a 7.5-inch barrel, so it's not a small gun, even though it's 22. So I want to look at that. I'm looking at it in the case along with the other, Contours, Buckmarks is in that section. It's a target pistol. That's what I'm looking for. And this was a Bass Pro, just because I happened to be in there for other stuff. And the salesman kept moving me down, like, oh, you don't want to look at that. He never said that, but he was just like making motions like, let's go look at these. And he would move me a case or two down to the dinky little pink guns that are like, and that's not, my XD9 is my smallest gun, and it's a 3-inch barrel, but it's beefy. It's a double stack, and it's not that light. And he keeps pointing me to these little, and not just that they're tiny, but that they're pink as well. And this is while I was strapped with my XD9, and I was just like, if I could just pull my shirt up for a second, just so he could be like, this is what I'm about. So I actually started carrying readily at the top of my photos in my phone, my guns, because I already owned a couple of competition guns, and I already owned my XD9, and I started using that to be like, these are the guns I have, and now this is what I'm looking for, so that they kind of would figure out, oh, this isn't like a newbie, and this isn't like looking for a little lady gun. I'm serious shooter. So I kind of had to resort to that to just be like, here you go. And these are the targets I shoot, so that they could see the hole ripped in the center of everything. And I seriously took that to start off with, and then they know I mean business, and then they'll treat me almost normally.
Patti, what have your gun store experiences been like?
Usually pretty good. I've had a couple of times where I went in and I asked about something, and I said, oh, and don't show me any pink guns. If you do, I'll slap you or something like that, Oh, okay. And, we didn't have any trouble after that. I did have one time where I bought a used gun from Bud's and went into the range to shoot it, and found that it was a Jam-O-Matic. And I said, well, let me just come back another time and shoot it some more and stuff. So I go back and I say, look, this gun is a Jam-O-Matic. Like about every third or fourth shot jams. And he goes, well, I think you need to get a tighter grip on it. And it's like, oh shit, So finally, after he told me this about 3 times, And I looked at him and said, I am not limp wristing this thing. And I mean, I'm an old farm girl. I'm used to swinging an axe, and I did Kung Fu. Okay. And I said, young man, shake hands with me. And I squeezed the crap out of his hand. And I said, I'm not limp wristing it. And he goes, yes, ma'am. And that pretty much ended that. And they gave me my money back and all like that. So
You're my hero.
thank you.
When I first started looking and researching, one of the recommendations I got from men in my life that own guns was just go to a store and ask to hold them and see what feels comfortable. And then you'll have an idea of what you want to go try to shoot first. So last year, it was right around my birthday. I was feeling really festive. And so I went into a Sportsman's Warehouse here and took a look. And it was in the evening. There wasn't a lot of people in the store. And I just kind of walked up to the counter and started looking around at different things that I had seen online. And there was like one man at the counter and there was 3 guys working at the counter. And I had to wait for that guy to leave, because apparently it takes 3 guys to help one at the counter. And I was looking at the like subcompact 9mm, and one of the guys came over and like opened the case. And so I thought, oh, he's going to ask me what I want to see. Right. And no, he just kind of was like pulling them out and dusting them off, even though, they didn't need any dusting or anything. And then the other 2 started like doing that guy joking about this guy's masculinity and how the guns that he was handling at that point in time were like an insult to his masculinity. And, oh, you're really manly holding that gun, even though they were the ones that I was looking at. And eventually I left. Nobody asked to help me. They all just sat there and had their bro talk behind the counter. And I actually left I left really defeated. And I kind of, it was emotional. I was like, am I ever, like, where am I going to find somebody who's going to, give me the time of day? And because I was a newbie at the time and, didn't really know the questions to ask or anything like that, I felt really, I was really down about it. Since then, now that I know a little bit, and I just walk in and I'm super aggressive. I'm like, I would like to see and I usually don't get any crap anymore. I've also found, though, like if anybody encounters this, I have found, and this is my experience, it's probably not going to happen for everybody, but I have found that the older gentlemen working at the store are generally a lot more helpful than the young guys. Yes. I don't know if it's like the young, playful frat boy mentality, but I get a lot more respect and grace from the older gentlemen, and that's just my experience.
Almost always. Yeah, I've had that experience too. And I will say I've had a much more difficult time being ignored and not listened to in stores that are busy than if I go into one of the more local places where there's 1 or 2 people in the store and me. For some reason, if you're there, even the young guys are like, oh, well, okay, we can have a conversation now. So if there's not as much pressure, but I mean, I literally won't shop at somewhere like Bass Pro Shop or, a Cabela's or something like that for guns, not only for the pricing, but just because as a woman, getting decent service at the gun counter is next to impossible. I mean, I asked to look at, we were at a Bass Pro, and I asked to look at some pretty nice, but I don't remember what it was, 12 gauge shotgun. And the guy literally said to me, are you sure you want a 12 gauge? And I was like, well, since I already have 2, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Stuff like that is just endemic. So I found the bigger, more busy stores are more of a problem.
I have also found that as well. We have a very small independently owned store here, which is actually where I bought my first gun and where I go for ammo and things all the time. And I feel like I get, even from the young guys there, it's a little better. it's probably more regimented and people are watching a little more closely.
Yeah.
We got a few questions about training and instruction. One of them was, as someone who helps friends learn to shoot and instructs people, what behaviors or specific things should he stay away from when instructing women? Maybe we've already given a couple hints though, but do you guys have anything to add?
I have a, go Patty.
One of the things that I have found is that when I'm instructing people, I have to touch them. And you know how people will do that lean back thing and stuff, and you press on their back and lean them forward and stuff. If you're working with a woman, particularly, I would encourage you before you start to say, look, as your trainer, I'm going to have to put my hands on your back, on your arms, or maybe your hands. I need you to know that part of that is for safety, especially your arms and your hands, because every once in a while, sometimes people will start to turn around in the lane and not realize they're doing it. And I'm going to grab you and everything. But please understand that I'm doing this to help train you. There's nothing else to it. If you'll explain that to them ahead of time, you'll be way ahead of the ballgame.
Lara?
Yeah, don't touch people, period, without explaining why or asking permission. But that is my big bugaboo. And for some reason, I have that way more with male trainers. I've had guys reach around me. Like, don't be that close. But the other thing, and I've had very good luck with this, but I've seen this numerous times. Don't stand on top of us, especially when it's a one-on-one class. So many times it's like, oh, it's a girl, she might do something, I have to be right there. You don't need to be right there anymore with a woman shooter than you do with a male shooter. Unless you're with a student who's doing something that you're really worried about the danger, like I'm going to need to grab their arm because they've been behaving in a way that I'm worried about it, at which point you probably want them to put the gun down and have a talk with them anyway. You don't need to stand literally right on my shoulder. And I see men, I'm pretty assertive and have just flat out told people to back off me. But I've seen that over and over and over again. Unless it's something particular, and again, you've had the discussion that you're going to need to do that for something that you're doing in the training, don't do that.
And Kat, I know you do a lot of instruction, so what can you add?
Pretty much the same thing. Just lead off, especially if you're with someone who you don't know very well. Lead off with, I might need to tap you on the shoulder. I just need to make sure that you're going to be okay with that and I don't take you by surprise. And that's how even I approach when I'm training someone, man or woman. If they're doing something that I don't want them to be doing, or if I just want to give them suggestions, I start with a tap on the shoulder. And I'm also arm's length away. I don't need to be on top of them, and they don't need somebody, literally breathing over their shoulder. So, they're nervous enough as it is for the most part. They're first-time shooters, and sometimes they're reluctant first-time shooters. So I have to be conscious and careful of that. And when you flip that and it's a male instructor, female, or otherwise, possibly marginalized student, you need to be very conscious of how you're approaching them, what you're doing with them, being very conscious that they're probably really nervous, probably more nervous than you ever were. And, you have to be really careful with that. If you just make them more scared, then it just, that'll make them never, ever want to shoot again. So arm's length, there's no reason to be any closer than this. This is tapping on the shoulder distance, and that's all you need to be. And and then over explaining. I'm not going to talk about mansplaining necessarily, but over explaining as well. It can kind of lead into that or feel like that. And it's cool that you want to show me how the gun functions, but especially if we're live on the range, that's a conversation for another time. We don't need to get into that now. I don't need you to over explain things to me. We should have had that how the gun works conversation beforehand, and if we didn't, that's fine. Leave it till after. We don't need all that. I'm not going to call it mansplaining because that's kind of a different thing. Again, I think I said it can lead into that, but just don't start. And if you don't start, then it doesn't turn into that. So it's okay.
We had a lot of questions about what's your favorite gun, and what could you do? What would you do differently if you were starting over again now? Also, questions about specific techniques and firearms and things like that. So let's phrase it like, if you were talking to a new woman shooter, what would you suggest she do? We have a lot of these right now. A lot of ladies are picking up guns. So say you met me a year ago when I was becoming interested. What would you suggest to me to get started? Any one of you?
I start with a lot of questions. I think a lot of times, and it's kind of runs into the first experience at a gun store thing too, where a woman walks in and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a gun," and they're like, "Here, have this stinky thing," and no conversation. What do you want it for? What are you going to do with it? Have you even thought about that? Sometimes women are just like, "I need to defend myself. I need a gun," and then they go to the store, and it's a whole conversation, and you have to be prepared, willing to have that whole conversation, or it's just not worth it. Especially a new shooter, someone who's never gotten into it before, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and you need to be prepared to answer those questions. If you're not, that's okay. You can find answers, but take your time. If she's ready to go to the gun store right now, be willing to try to help her dial it back just a little bit, so that she can get more information, so she can go in more informed herself. You don't want to be the more, you're probably still going to be the more informed one, but you don't want to walk in with someone, you don't want to go and buy a car with someone who's never driven a car before. So same kind of idea. They need to have had a chance in the driver's seat. If you're going to a gun shop that's got a range and has rentals, see if maybe you can convince her to do that first, and see if it's even something that she's comfortable with in the first place. So just dial it back, take the time, have the conversation.
Lara or Patti?
So I have this discussion a lot. If the woman shooter is coming to you and asking for advice, that is a different thing than, I want to teach my wife, girlfriend, sister, whatever, to shoot. What gun should I buy for her? Two totally different questions. If you have a woman shooter coming to you for advice, treat them like you would treat any new shooter. What are they looking for? Exactly what Kat said. Ask all those questions. What are they looking for? What do they want to do? I think it is very important to be aware that there is a level of nervousness for women who have not grown up around guns that is different than for men. In popular culture, it is not as common for women to handle guns in any way that is not overly sensationalized and kind of ridiculous. And so for a lot of women, me included, the very first time at the range is very, very nerve-wracking. Bring other guns, but I highly suggest starting new shooters who are more likely to be nervous on 22s, simply because they're so much less frightening noise-wise. It doesn't have anything to do with the recoil or the ability to handle the gun. Honestly, it's that bang that flinch takes some real getting over when you're doing something that society has told you is almost prohibited, almost not what you're supposed to do as a woman, especially because it's actually something when you do it, it's really empowering. I tend to do that. if it is the second situation, I want to buy my whatever, this woman in my life, a gun, what should I buy? Don't do that. If they are not a shooter, don't do that. What you should buy them is lessons. And really, a great gift would be the same amount of money you would spend on a not terribly expensive pistol of whatever you thought you were going to buy them on lessons that you are not teaching them. Because it is much, I can say this from experience, as much as I love my husband, it's much easier not to be trained by someone who you are close with. It is much easier to get training from an instructor. And that is true for all kinds of things. I mean, it's not just, I am quite certain that anybody else would be able to teach Eddie how to cook something better than I could just because of our relationship. That's just how those relationships go. Buy them training. Don't buy them a gun, and let them find out what they like to shoot. They might turn out that what they really love to shoot is a 45. Great. Would that be what you thought they were going to get? Probably not. Look at what Kat shoots. That's definitely not the gun I'm going to pick, but, one of my favorite guns is my Kimber. That's most people's not favorite gun. Let people go learn, get a bunch of lessons. If they can do it with, in a place or with an instructor who has a variety of things for them to shoot, all the better.
Patti.
One of the things that I like to do is take people, in my case, to Bud's gun store. It's yes, that Bud's gun store. That's the brick and mortar part of it. And they have a gun rental that has a huge selection, and you can change out guns as often as you want. I've done as many as 10 at one sitting. I would start them out and I say, look, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to, and we've got plenty of time. First of all, I want you we'll talk and we'll determine what we think might be a good starting point. I want you to just handle guns. This nice salesman over here, and I know all the salesmen there. So, I'd pick out a friendly one and I'd say, just let her handle things. And I want you to write down every one that feels really good. Then we would go rent them. And I would give her one-on-one instruction and, whatever and all that kind of stuff. But that's that main thing. And I would encourage her, and nobody ever wants to do this. It's like, if you're going to buy a $500 gun, spend $200 trying guns out.
Yes.
And usually I can get them to spend about 50, maybe 75. And then they, I'm ready to buy. Yeah, okay. So that's my bit.
That's when I decided that I wanted to pursue this. I knew that even though, I had so many shooters in my family, I knew that my dad's guns were not what I wanted. And I also knew that I was never going to listen to anything my dad told me, because he's my dad. And I've spent the last 40 years, rebelling against him. So I knew I didn't want him to teach me. And luckily I found you guys. David Phillips in the club, our education leader, he set me up with a bunch of California instructors emailed me, and the one that I got set up with was fantastic. He listened to everything that I had to say. We went out and we met at an indoor range that did rentals. I told him I was interested in semi-automatic handguns. He brought his collection. I got to play with them all. And then based on my performance with them and what felt comfortable to me, he suggested some others and we rented them. I spent, a couple $100, but it was like the best couple $100 I ever spent, because a few months later when I ordered my gun and it came, I knew what I was getting. I knew exactly what it was going to do. I knew how it was going to feel. And I knew that I had tried a bunch and picked this. So that's my recommendation to everyone. While we're on this topic, one of the funnier questions that we got on Facebook a few days ago was from Karen, and she asked us, why does everybody always keep suggesting that we use revolvers?
It has to do with the size of the grip. So there's this whole thing about girl hands and women hands, right? That we often have smaller hands, and I have really, really, really tiny hands. My wedding ring is not even a size 4. I have super teeny hands. Yeah. So I am the person who that is. And literally the only gun that we have that I can't shoot is one of our 45s. And that's because something about the grip actually cuts my hand. The way that it fits in my hand has nothing to do with the recoil, has nothing to do with the fact that it's a 45. It has to do with the fact that that gun is absolutely not designed for my hands. So it is this whole thing, though, that women have smaller grips. So it should be nice and easy to hold these nice little, so many of the compact snub nose revolvers have these little grips. It should be nice and easy for us with these little girl hands to shoot those. They are some of the hardest guns to shoot. I was talking about this with Grant last night. He was like, don't recommend a revolver at all. He's like, not for a new shooter, make sure, take them out. And Grant is the revolver guy. But I think it has to do with that. And then it has to do with the fact that when women started coming up and shooting, it really was this drive of people buying guns as gifts. And for a while, there was absolute garbage made in pink for women. And the product was clearly inferior, but pink. So girls were supposed to get it. And this is that Charter Arms revolver thing, right? They come in pink and teal and purple. And there's a compact semi-auto that has this too, which are actually much better guns than the Charter Arms. But Charter Arms was kind of the first one that came up. Yes, shrink it and pink it. Exactly. Charter Arms was kind of the first one that came up with these. They're horrible guns. They're just terrible quality. And so that was this whole thing that was kind of the first gun that people were seeing as the women's gun. So that's where it's from.
So I actually have extremely large hands. My trainer, we had the same size hands, which was really interesting and worked out really well. And when it comes to pink and blue things, I mean, I kind of like those, but I also like things that are colored ways that they're not supposed to be. So, but not every woman's like that. So don't use me as an example. Do you guys have, Patti and Kat, do you have anything to add before we go on to our next one?
I just think there's a whole thing with revolvers that I think a lot of salesmen, or I don't know if it's men in general, I hate to make that kind of a generalization, but it just seems like they feel that revolvers are simpler and that women have trouble because a semi-auto takes just a little bit more training. It just takes somebody to walk you through how it works and what you need to do just to make sure that you've got a round chambered and ready to go. And it just, it's an extra minute compared to 30 seconds, seriously. But I feel that there is a general feeling out there a lot of the time that, give the lady a revolver because as long as she can get the cartridges in there and close the cylinder, all she's got to do is pull the trigger and that's all you need. Well, okay, but how about after that? Sure, if you're never going to shoot the gun for any other reason except to carry it in your purse and pull the trigger if somebody's trying to mug you. But I mean, really, what's the likelihood of that kind of a situation? If it's for home defense, you've got 6 rounds. If you buy a fancy one, you've got 8. Where's that going to get you? Where's that going to get anybody? I just feel like it's a bad idea in general. I feel like revolvers are really for people those are the fun guns, those are the fun range guns, and that's something that to do after you've already taken care of home defense, self-defense, fun stuff to shoot at the range. Because otherwise you're looking at your tiny little snubbies, and those are not fun to shoot. Gotta tell you. I know there's a few people out there that are like, oh, I shoot them all the time. They're great. Most of us feel like we've been kicked by a mule in our hand when we try to shoot those. They're not fun. They are absolutely self-defense only. And it's not something that anyone's going to get any practice out of if they actually go to the range and try to shoot in the lane for an hour. A revolver is not going to happen. That's a sure way to get a lady to set that gun down and walk away and just be like, I'm done. Because if that's what shooting guns is like, it's not fun. So I don't know why. I mean, I think that's the thinking, but in reality, that's the reality. It's just that's the one of the best ways to get women to not want to shoot is if that's their first experience. If that's a first, second, and third, they're just going to be like, nah, I'm done, because those aren't fun to shoot.
And I should say, I have some revolvers, and I own revolvers, and I have some revolvers that are incredibly fun to shoot. And I have a small revolver that's an older one that I really love, but it's not something I'm ever taking to train a new shooter on, ever. It's, I totally agree. If that had been the first gun that I had shot, I would never have gotten into shooting ever.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it has its place, and once you've had a little bit of experience and understand the place, then sure, you're more willing to shoot it or maybe even get good with it. But it's not a first experience kind of thing that keeps people going. So just like when the question comes up of I want to buy a gun, what do I do? Have the conversation, and that's where usually where having the semi-automatic comes in. And yeah, the small guns, like I am not. I don't have large hands. They're not as tiny as Lara's, but they're definitely smaller than Danielle's. And I'm a double stack girl. All my guns are double stacks, and they got big fat handles. I can barely I just reached the trigger with the nub of my trigger finger. So it's really. It's an individual thing, and it's an exploration that you have to take. It's not just like, I want to buy a gun. Oh, here you go. Got to have the talk.
And Patti, I know you have a few revolvers. I've seen a couple of them this weekend.
I have several revolvers. I like revolvers, but I would never, most of my big revolvers, I would never carry. I do have my baby. And before I talk about my baby, let me say that my first carry gun was a snubby, Pro Series 640, which is a very expensive gun. I couldn't shoot it worth a damn. And I finally, I'd carry 38s in it, but I thought, well, I should shoot a 357 and just, it's a 350. I should see what it's like. I thought I thought it had cut a big gash across the bottom of my hand. It hurt so bad. So this is my baby. I'm showing that we've got clear. And it's one of those Airlight titanium jobs. And it's a very rare thing because it's in 32 H&R Magnum.
Oh, nice.
It's very controllable. 6 shots, not 5. And the thing weighs 11 ounces.
Awesome.
It's my baby. I love it. It's my carry around the neighborhood kind of gun, or if there's circumstances that I don't carry my regular carry gun, then I carry that. So,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, Danielle, is this a place that maybe we should answer Deborah's question? She's been waiting, and it kind of seems like it's a segue because we're all talking about kind of guns and hands and the revolver thing.
Go for it. I didn't see her question, so go ahead. Sorry, I'm monitoring too many things right now.
Okay, so this was Robert's daughter's Deborah, and she's been on the call, and she has a tendon injury in her hand. So she's having trouble finding a gun that worked well for her. She wants something that she can go shoot with the family. And I'm going to go back up in the chat and see if I can find her exact question. It's up at the top. It's going to take me a minute.
If she's still here, maybe
here we go.
Go ahead.
I got it. I would like suggestions on a pistol with low recoil and a very easy trigger. Thank you. So My kind of thought on that was, and so my first question was, what do you want it for? And she said she wants it to go shoot with the family, so target shooting. My first thought was my Mark III is not a particularly light gun, but it has no recoil at all. It's a 22, and I have the Volquartsen trigger assembly in it. So I replaced the trigger with a much lighter trigger, and that is the easiest gun in the world to shoot that I've ever shot. I love it, and it's a tack driver. It's ridiculous. Literally, I have, God, I don't know how many 22s we have, and it is by far the most accurate of all of them, but the gun itself is not particularly light. I would say you probably, as long as this is a hand strength because of the tendon issue and not an ability to handle some weight in the gun itself, a heavier gun's going to have less recoil. So my feeling is a longer barrel and a heavier gun. The longer the barrel and the heavier the gun, the less recoil you're going to have. My Kimber, I have a full-size 1911 Kimber in 9 that has a scary light trigger in it, like very, very light. You have to keep your finger off the trigger. Something like that, Kimbers are a thing. So a lot of people have trouble with them. You do have to shoot a higher grain of ammo in them. So it has a little more recoil, but the gun is metal. So again, it's heavier. So I really like that. So anything like that. So my suggestion is a metal gun instead of a polymer. So metal instead of polymer and a longer barrel, and then triggers or different things. I will say I would not recommend my Beretta. The trigger on that's going to be too heavy. So that's kind of my thought, and I wanted to hear what you guys thought maybe for her.
Sorry, I just saw a comment. She said that she can't shoot her father's Kimber. I don't know if we know what kind of Kimber her father has.
I don't know. I don't have the strength to pull the trigger more than once.
Okay, so my Kimber's trigger is super light. Some of them are very heavy. So that's what you're going to want to look for. You're going to want to look at how many pounds of pull the trigger has. That's how triggers are described. And so different guns have different trigger pulls. And so you're going to want to look for a light trigger pull. So
yeah, so you probably want to look for something that's more like a single action, double action, because usually when you're getting into this, once you get past the double action and you're shooting single, the trigger is much lighter. And that's kind of another question that I would have with shooting the Kimber. If that's a hammer fired semi-auto, then is that first shot in double action? Because if it is, that's your hardest trigger pull. So if you're not getting past that first shot, but you're also probably pulling like 12 pounds instead of 5. So it's tough to go by that, just because I'm not sure if you're really dealing with like having trouble pulling a 6-pound trigger or 5-pound trigger, or if you're having trouble pulling an over 10-pound trigger.
The only gun that I regularly fire now has a 2-pound trigger.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you might be looking at needing a trigger job on almost anything. If you have tried shooting like the Kimber, if we know that you're shooting the single action and having trouble with that, it's still probably, Lara, you can help me with this. You said it should be a lighter trigger. It should be probably 5 pounds or so.
Mine might even be lighter than that, but mine's super light. Okay. Mine's probably more like 5-pound, 3-pound.
Yeah. So out of the box, you're probably looking at needing to do a trigger job on just about anything that you buy. I don't think generally retail, you're going to find anything lower than probably a 4-pound trigger.
Yeah. And I like Karen's suggestion about arm braces.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
I like that too. Yeah.
If I can comment real quick, she has tried my Kimber Micro 380, and for that, the problem was the amount of recoil. Yeah, I just handed her a 1911 that has had a trigger job, and quite simply, the size of that 1911 got the bug-eyed look.
I will point out, I can't bend my finger today, so trying guns today is not a problem. Is a problem.
Got it. Yeah, no. So this is a real thing, and disabled shooting is actually probably something we should do a class on because there's a lot of issues about it. A 1911-22 is a really good suggestion. My Kimber is a full. It's not a 5-inch barrel. It's a 4, I think. So it's still considered a full size, but it's got way less recoil than the little micros, which, by the way, are super snappy. So don't judge all of them on that. And carry guns often have, weirdly, small carry guns often have heavier triggers than bigger range guns and sporting guns because they don't want you to have an accidental discharge when you're pulling it out of the holster and you accidentally brush the trigger. So that's something to think about there. Patti, do you have a thought on this?
My only concern is exactly which finger or whether this was in the hand. I don't think this would work for her, but my first thought was a really outside the box kind of thing with regard to handling recoil was a Chiappa Rhino, because it won't flip up like this. It pushes back into the hand.
Yeah, and I think that depends on also like what you're looking for. Like if you're happy shooting a 22, this is my Buckmark. It's a very heavy gun. It's I don't know, 3 or 4 pounds or something like that. But it's 22, so because it's a big heavy gun, like 0 recoil. This is what I start my students with, and it's intimidating looking because it's got such a long barrel. But there's, you don't have to get the Buckmarks with the giant barrel. You can get the shorter ones that are a little less heavy. But again, because they're heavier guns, they have very little recoil. So it also depends on like there's a bunch of things to weigh here because you're looking for recoil, but then maybe you want a bigger caliber. Sometimes people want that gun that goes bang. And when you're shooting with other people that have guns that are making big bangs, sometimes you get tired of the 22 and want something bigger. So then that's kind of finding that balance between being able to handle just the bigger, heavier gun when you've got it out at arm's length. If that's not a problem and it's really just the recoil and the trigger pull, then the bigger, heavier you can get with the smallest caliber is probably the balance that you're looking for. And a trigger job, I think, no matter what.
Yeah.
A lot of the comments in chat are giving thumbs ups and plus ones to the Buckmark idea.
I love my Buckmark. I love it, love it, love it.
And I love my Mark III. And my Mark III is essentially the Mark version of Cat's Buckmark.
Yeah.
The longer barrel, heavier gun. I have the Target model.
And chat is also pretty hopping with comments about just like a disability panel. I know we have quite a few members that have varying disabilities, so maybe later we could do like a Zoom meeting about that.
Yeah, we can do a distance learning.
Just putting that out there.
Yeah,
we'll do a distance
great idea.
I saw earlier some conversation in chat about concealed carry and purse carry. I know I've always been curious about bra holster carries. So yeah.
Yes, and I have opinions.
Okay,
I do too.
Let's hear your guys' opinion.
Patti, I want to let you go first because I'm going to go get my carry bag. Okay. So I'll let Patti start. I'll be right back.
All right. First of all, as far as the bra holster goes, for those of you that don't know, okay, I've got my pistol. Yes, I've checked. It's empty. It will carry your gun right here under that bottom strap of your bra. And you can do it 2 different ways. You can do it so that, all right, can y'all see this? So here's the strap that goes underneath. You can have it so your gun sits right beneath it, or you can have more control of the gun and the bra strap will actually sit on top of it. And it is designed, so that you jerk it straight down like that. You don't pull it out. And yes, there was one woman that killed herself because she tried pushing it like that and it turned the gun toward her and everything. And yes, I was explaining this to a guy in a gun store one time. He'd asked me about if I knew anything about it, and I wound up inadvertently flashing him because I didn't have a bra on that day. But
Surprise.
this is my carry purse. It is called a Tacklet, tactical wallet. It's put out by Tuff Products, Tuff. And I've looked at lots and lots and lots of carry purses, and they're all made the same. They've got a little zipper that you have to undo, and then you wiggle your hand inside this tiny little compartment, and you get scratches on your hand. So if it's going to tear up your hand, guess what you're not going to do? You're not going to practice with it. Mm-hmm. But this gun, or this bag, I'd usually just, let me see if I'm, all right. So I can get it that quick. Ooh. I don't have to unzip anything. This thing just rips down.
Oh, that's great.
And I talked to, when I went to SHOT Show, I talked to the Tuff representative, and I told him how much I loved this purse, and I showed it to him and everything. And he said they were getting ready to revamp it. And I gave him my name and number, and I said, call me. I have ideas for you, you know, because my only problem with this is a fanny pack, okay? I carry it as a purse. It's not as, I mean, I'm not a real girly girl, but it could look a little nice.
Patti, would you demo it again? A couple of people missed your demo of the draw.
Yeah. You were too fast.
I am sorry. Let me get it. All right, everybody see all right?
Yep.
Yep.
Thumb hooks in right here. Just a big old strap there. You rip straight down.
Okay, now do it fast.
Say go.
1, 2, 3, go. I like that. I wrote that down.
I love this. I love this stuff. Unfortunately, it's been discontinued. Unfortunately, they only did it in pretty colors for a short run. Mm-hmm. So if you want your, God, I am so freaking sick of gun stuff that's in black, tan, or OD.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, Kat, you're next.
So I'm a big fan of on body. So whenever I can, I carry inside my waistband, and that can either look like using a belt with a pair of jeans, or I do use belly bands as well. And so that's whenever I'm not working, basically, I'm carrying on body. However, when I work, I'm a veterinary technician. I work in a very busy emergency room. We're a level 1 trauma center. I never know what kind of situation I'm going to run into. And so carrying at work is awkward, to say the least. And it's kind of frowned upon anyway. So I avoid that. However, I do keep it in my bag then, which is in my locker. So a lot of the time I'm going home from work, so I'll be going to the grocery store, whatnot, and so I'm bag carrying at those times. So I do have strong opinions about bag carrying. I know a lot of other people do. I know that my opinions waver because I do use it as an exception, but I try to stay to very strict rules while I'm doing that. So I've got, and I've kind of done other things in my periphery of my life to keep my rules, within my guidelines, my own rules. So I do have a concealed carry bag. I don't remember who makes it. It's a larger bag. It's got 2 ways to get into it. So it's not quite as much as it's not quite such the dinky compartment. So it's got this way to get in, which is a little bit more of a subtle way. It's on the side panel here. So the draw through that. You also have to practice. I've got the slide locked back, so it's not quite what I would normally be drawing out of here. So there's a holster inside, and then this is my little XD9 Mod 2. Just so we know, we've got empty chamber, empty magazine. So this guy, there's also across the top where the normal bag access is, where the gun goes is directly, there's a whole center compartment where the gun goes. So there's purse stuff on both sides, and then right there in the middle, which is of course all black, so it's hard to see. There's Velcro. There's a whole panel of Velcro in there, and that is actually where the holster goes. The holster is Velcroed as well, so you can put that holster in any position that you prefer. So if you think you're gonna draw the most out of, see, it goes right through. So if you think you're going to draw the most from this direction, you can point the handle in this direction to grab it easier. Or if you think you might be going over the top, you can tilt that holster upwards and grab it that way. So it's kind of whatever works the best for you. So this one I have found very nice. It's a knockoff. It's not even real leather. It was like $60. Mm-hmm. It was a very happy purchase the day that I found that thing. So rules, crossbody only. And if you are going to carry in a bag, not only crossbody at all times, but do have a bag that is either made for concealed carry that has cut-proof straps. This has 2 pieces of metal that are going through it that can't be cut. So you're carrying it this way. So somebody's going to have to really fight you to get it off you. They can't run up, cut the strap, and run with it. Generally, if you're carrying crossbody, for the most part, I mean, it's, balancing that likelihood. Most purse thieves are less likely to go after someone who's got a crossbody in the first place because it's harder to get off them. So crossbody at all times. I never take it off when I'm in public. If I happen to be somewhere, if I'm in a booth where, even if I'm in a booth where I think I'm putting it on the inside, so nobody's going to grab across the table, right? And run away with your purse from 4 feet over. I still tend to, because it is, it's easy to clean. So I will tend to I'll put it on the floor. And I put it with my leg through it. So the strap is up on my knee, and that bag is on the floor behind my knee. So it's never completely removed from my body. The only time that it is in my car. And even in my car, I've got a center console, right? It's never on the seat next to me. It's never on the passenger seat. It's on that center console. And then I have I should have looked it up before this, but there's a thing you can buy that goes between your seats in your car that's meant to be attached to the center console in the back of it. It goes between the seats, and it's like a little hammock for your bag or anything else that you might put there. So you can stick it in the center console. This is what me getting in my car looks like. My bag goes like this, because this way I can reach into it this way or this way, and it just sits on the console right next to me. So bag goes in, I sit down, my bag is right here next to me. And it's got that hammock behind it, so it can't go anywhere. And then my shoulder strap gets clicked into my seatbelt. So if I get in an accident, purse goes flying, it won't go any further than this.
Okay, your turn, Lara.
So I have two thoughts. So I'm going to show you guys a badly designed carry bag. I bought this bag because I use it as my laptop bag. I did not buy it as a carry bag, but it is in fact a 511 designed carry bag. And let's see if I can show you on camera. You might not be able to see, but can you see the light through there?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the carry pocket.
Okay.
It opens on both sides. And the idea was that you could get your gun either direction. But let's think about that, right? That makes no sense because this is a shoulder bag. And what a lot of women do with their bags when you're shopping is you do this. And then you swing your bag to your other shoulder when it gets heavy because shopping with a 5-pound gun in your bag makes it a lot heavier on your shoulder. So, but that makes no sense whatsoever. It also doesn't have any retention strap in there for the gun. The idea, it has kind of a fuzzy thing on the inside of the bag that you're supposed to be able to Velcro, that's supposed to grab Velcro, but there's nothing to keep the gun in the right position. So there are enormous numbers of carry bags that are poorly designed in ways that make absolutely no sense. Patti, my only quibble with your carry bag is that I noticed that your trigger wasn't covered.
That's no.
Or is that, it is normally?
This is not the gun I normally carry in it. So the one I normally carry, yes, it does cover the trigger.
I thought it might be because of the way it was set up. I was like, I think that might just be the way she has it set. The goal in a carry bag is that there is a retention holster that keeps the gun in the same position at all times with the trigger covered, but yet allows you quick access to the gun. Patti's is one of the best examples of that I have ever seen. This is absolute garbage for carrying. And by the way, this is not a cheap bag. It's a fabulous laptop bag. It's not a great gun bag. There's no dedicated interior pocket for a gun. It's just a bag on the inside.
Yeah.
So although I will tell you that I do use those side pockets for, yes, exactly what Kat has, but you need something in the bag that will allow that holster to stay in the right place. Whether it's Velcro, a strap, anything.
Yeah, so mine's got that whole panel of Velcro, so you can actually stick it in upright. Right. You can stick it in. It took me a while just now to even pull it out to show you just the holster because it is stuck in there so well.
Yeah, so, no, they're great. There's just things about your carry bag. The other thing about your carry bag you need to know is you need to know if you're going to be able to get at your gun if you're struggling. And that is the downfall of an enormous number of carry bags. Also, one of the great things about Patti's bag, because of where that gun was on her body, easy to get to one-handed. You could pull that and get to it one-handed. That's a problem with a carry bag like this, where to conceal your gun, you have to zip. Kat, yours didn't look like it had the zip. It looked like it had a flip.
Mine has a zip, but if I'm ever, granted, I can come across a surprise situation, but this is it's easy to do one-handed.
It's easier to do one-handed, yeah.
Yeah, it zips down. So all I have to do is this, and I'm in.
You're in. Yeah. See, this bag is not going to position right on your body. You really need one hand holding the bag. It would be a terrible situation if you were actually somebody was on you. You wouldn't be able to use it.
Of all the carry bags that I've ever shopped for, this is the first one that I've ever purchased. I've looked at dozens and dozens, and this was the first one I came across that I was like, this hits all the marks that I'm looking for, and a carry bag that doesn't really look like a carry bag.
Yeah.
The other thing that I do talk to people about, I have carried in just a regular purse that's not designed to be a carry purse. But what I've run across is, one of my criteria is the gun has got to be in a dedicated compartment, no matter what. So no matter what kind of bag you decide to carry in, has to be in a holster that covers the trigger, and it has to be in a dedicated compartment. So I have found bags like Travel On So those are travel purses. They're meant for travel. They have locking compartments, cut-proof straps as well. And then a lot of them have a back compartment that zips. This one's not zipped, but that's, not for the gun. Right. But I have carried in those, and I have bought a holster that is designed to go into a larger purse compartment that will cover the trigger, hold the gun upright. And in those cases, again, it's a little bit clumsier because you don't have it's not quite as easy to reach because it's behind the bag. Mm-hmm. But I also found that I tended to carry with, especially if I knew I was going out to a parking lot, before I get out there, I would just unzip it. And that way the compartment's already unzipped, and it's right here. Yep. And even in that case, like if I was in a really sketchy situation, or I thought I might be, I would just walk like this, my hands on my gun.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so let me talk about 2 more things about carry bags, because that fits that perfectly. If you're going to carry in a bag, you must take it to the range and practice with it.
Yeah.
I would not suggest just dry firing at home. You need to take your bag to the range and practice the entire draw stroke, including the fire. And you need to dry fire it first, and you need to probably do this in front of a mirror, not aiming at yourself, but so you can see what's going on with the bag. Where is it snagging? What kind of clothes can I wear? All those kind of things. And then once you're comfortable with it, then go take it and fire. That is key. The second part of a carry bag. If you are carrying in a bag and you are going to somebody's house that has children, your bag is going to either not come into that house or it is going to stay on your lap. I have had so many people come in my house and say, "Can you put this in the safe for me?" No, I'm not opening my safe for you. You're armed. You have a loaded gun and you want me to open my safe like hell. I don't care what kind of friend you are. Not going to happen. Do not carry in a bag if you're going to somebody's house with children, unless if you're going for 5 minutes, fine. But if you're going for dinner, that's a problem.
Yeah. Same kind of rule. It needs to stay on you. So if you're not just going to leave it, if it's small enough, you can just leave it strapped on. Yeah. But same idea. If you're at the table, you've got it around your leg, with it under your knee, because kids and you just never know. They get curious and they look in other people's stuff.
This is great, and I think it's a good time to mention that our Ask the Ladies channel in Discord is going to become a permanent channel, so we can continue these conversations on. And the 4 of us have been talking with our fearless leader Ed about also having LGC women's Facebook group. So we'll have that soon for LGC member women, so we can discuss outreach and all of these problems that we encounter. But we are reaching our time limit, so I want to go to Kyle and see if we have any questions or comments.
No comments that I'm going to relay. You can all read the chat. There was a question, though, for those that carry off body. Do you worry about the beige vest syndrome? Like, I don't think I have to explain that, right?
Right. I don't think my bag looks like a carry bag, and I if I don't have that one, it's like a travel on type thing. I do have a hip bag that I wear as well. But that's like a kind of steampunk looking thing, and again, nobody has any idea that there might be a gun in there.
Yeah.
I will also say that Kat's bag looks like something I could get at Kohl's.
Yeah. So does Patty's, honestly. Patty's bag to me looks exactly like what I travel with when I'm going international traveling and I need something that weighs absolutely nothing and that I can wash if it gets dirty. That bag to me, I would not peg that bag at all. I would peg that bag less than I would peg the carry purses that are the ones that they're the carry purses are the ones that, for a better term, scream Texas.
Yeah,
got
it's true.
silver. There's a design, and if you know what they are, you've got it in your head.
The fringe and the
fringe.
bedazzled.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's just like, oh, look, she's got a gun. I
Yeah,
can those.
I've seen those.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing out on things because I had to ask someone what beige vest meant. So that was it. Like I have nothing else question wise
Great.
that really popped out at me.
Oh, good. Okay.
Great.
So, Lara, back to Robert's daughter, there was one other thing she was curious about, and that is a long gun that might have a trigger that works for her. She has fired a .22, but again, she's looking for something a little bit larger caliber if the trigger will work.
For a rifle?
That is correct.
Pistol caliber carbines with the trigger job might be a really easy way to go. Very, very low recoil, very easy to shoot. They're adjustable. If you don't want a 15-22, which is kind of the 22 version of the AR, I would look at maybe a pistol caliber carbine. I have shot quarter circle 10s that are really lovely guns. Cheap they are not. By the way, I am the last person you should be asking if you want a gun that's under $1,000 because I like expensive, pretty guns. That's what I tend to own. We have some that aren't, but that's high on. I would look at those. ARs are, if you're going to be shooting from the bench, you can definitely shoot an AR. You will want to look at different triggers, and I'm probably not the trigger person. What do you think, a LaRue maybe? For a trigger, a LaRue? There's so many. Yeah, there's adjustable ones. Bolt guns, my only concern about a bolt gun is whether she can manipulate the bolt easily. Having to wrap it with her finger to pull it, that's my only concern on a bolt gun. I like the idea of the trigger on a bolt gun. Then yeah, a bolt gun, definitely. Yeah, the Savage trigger, that's a really good one. I don't know. I can think of, you can even get some of the guns, now they're coming out with some stocks for ARs that are like the stocks for shotguns that have the compression, so they absorb the recoil. I've seen somewhere, I don't know if it's actually to market yet, but I know they have that, something like that exists. I don't know if it's actually out there. You could do something like that where there's really no recoil. Yeah, I mean, going to somebody really knowledgeable about building an AR, we need to connect her with Marlene is what we need to do. Although Marlene is the queen of high recoil, but Marlene is the person to have her talk to. Marlene is in the Bay Area and knows everything about guns. So let us connect you to Marlene. She'll have ideas, and she owns a lot, so you can probably try some stuff.
Awesome. So we're about at our time limit. Do you guys have anything you'd like to say for closing before we hand things back to our fearless leader?
I keep thinking there's something I should say, but I can't think of what it is. So guess I'm done.
Hey, just go ahead, Lara.
I was going to say, I think for me, the thing is, we're the four of us, plus a lot of the other women in the club, we're always willing to answer your questions. We're always willing to talk to you about something. If you have a question about whether something's appropriate that you saw, if you have a question about how to find training, if you have a question about my wife shoots, what do you think about this gadget geared towards women? We are all willing to talk about that. Kat, Patti, and I have all been to SHOT Show. We've all seen all the gear. Danielle is clearly very knowledgeable about all this stuff as well. Reach out to us. We're happy to be a resource for that.
Yeah,
and keep in mind, I'm retired and bored, so I have lots and lots of time to help you with anything you want.
Yeah, if you want an idea of Lara's taste in ARs, her blue AR is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah,
I love that rifle. I really do.
I have a custom built Tiffany blue AR.
Yep, it's gorgeous.
So yeah, we're gonna have we'll be on most of us are on Facebook. I don't know if Patti is, but I know the rest of us are. And I think this weekend was a great example of using Discord to get in touch with each other and network. So reach out to any of us if you have any questions. This has been awesome. And thanks for letting me participate in this with you guys as the newbie who is still learning. You guys have taught me so much. So thanks, everyone. Applause to you guys. And thanks to our awesome crowd for the questions and comments.
Yeah, and then as club leadership, thank you to everyone who participated this weekend. Kat, thank you for pivoting so seamlessly to make this go so brilliantly. I wish I was with you and Patti and Danielle in person and everyone else, but thank you to everybody who's participated in all of the events all weekend. We were nervous. We didn't know what this would be like, and we're really, really thrilled that not only that so many of you have attended so much, but that you participated so much and that so many people contributed and volunteered, and thank you from all of us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lara. Thank you, all the women in the club. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
And Ed, now you can go home.
I'm not gonna ruin the picture by going on video because I don't think that's appropriate to end it on a note where it's the ladies panel and suddenly the guy comes on and starts blah. So thank you all very much. It was an excellent panel. We'll get whatever we need to do for infrastructure set up, and I'm going to see all you folks on Discord. This concludes our formal programming